Good morning, everyone. This is Jim Clark here at the Synchronicity Sanctuary in Central Virginia to share another contemplation with you on this wonderful Monday morning here in Virginia. So, the contemplation that we're going to consider today is I am joyous bliss. I am one and whole. This is a pretty big statement to make considering the state of humanity today. We don't act that way, do we? Because we're not living in the experience of the truth of who we are. We're living in the experience of separation. We're living in the experience of illusory mortality, illusory humanity. So, it's real, but it's a reality that's limited. It's a reality that is here for a purpose, and we're not connected with our purpose in that. We're not connected with who we really are, and because of that, we are subject to behaviors and perceptions of life and each other in ways that only exacerbate the illusory aspect of creation. So when we're completely immersed in this illusion of separation, when we experience life as a victim of mortality and the limitations in it, we lack love, we lack something. We're always lacking something. There's always something we have to become to be acceptable in the society and the culture that we find ourselves in. And it's when we reach an extreme in this experience of not being enough, of not having enough, of being desperate to try to be something that we can accept even ourselves. And it's when we reach an extreme in this experience that by the laws of polarized experience, we automatically shift to the opposite polarity, towards the positive polarity. So, and this is often a prelude to an awakening experience. So, in the midst of our emergency, if you will, where we're at an all-time low with regards to how we perceive ourselves, suddenly we might have a breakthrough, and all of a sudden the experience of I am joyful bliss happens, and in that experience, everything that we believed about ourselves and what we believed about life is eradicated, at least in that moment, because we experience, not believe, we experience who we are at levels of our selves, at dimensions of who we are that previously we didn't know. We didn't have any experience of it, irregardless of what we believed. The experience we were having was generated out of the belief system that we are separate, that we're not enough, that we're subject to all kinds of bad things, broken relationships, not having enough money, and so forth and so on. And suddenly, we experience ourselves as something way beyond the limitations of being a human being, of being flesh and blood. And it's an energy experience that is so powerful and so overwhelming that anything that we might have held as true before pales in comparison. And it is in that moment that our journey, our conscious journey to fully be who we are and to be able to experience that as a constant, that's where that journey begins. Because in that moment, your life, depending on what your lifestyle was, but the energetic that is released in such experiences is far beyond what the physical body is actually able to sustain in duration. Eventually, it will move out, and you'll start to return to the kind of reality that you were generating before, because you still hold a lot of data, a lot of beliefs in your unconscious that say that you are something less than a joyous bliss, something less than being one and whole and complete. And as long as that information is recycling in your unconscious, it will eventually try to reclaim the dominant negative polarity experience of being a separate human being and having self-worth issues endlessly and so forth. So I remember when I had my awakening experience, and in the moment of that experience, had I known what I know today, I would have walked away from everything and everyone that was in my life, and I would have devoted my whole attention to meditation and living a holistic lifestyle that supported the experience of being joyful bliss. But I didn't. And in that, the journey was certainly not over. It had just begun, even though at some points along my way to be where I am today, I believed that my journey had come to an end. I believed that somehow I had done something to stop it. And this is kind of like the creation theories that we're familiar with out of religious traditions, where we have done something wrong and we're being condemned to a life of hard work and suffering because we're not quite good enough to be accepted into the heavens of the gods. So, which shows how deeply rooted this kind of belief system is in humanity at large, and how that gets projected out onto from those who still suffer from that kind of limitation in their experience, and how that belief system gets projected out onto the people around them and the people that they are focusing upon, because it's coming from an unconscious source, and it's coming with enough power, our power, that we're giving to that story, that it is a reality, and it's something that we actually experience. So you can't say to someone that, I'm sorry, this isn't real, you're really joyful bliss, means nothing unless they can have the experience of it themselves, which is where mystical systems are vastly different from religious systems, in the sense that they emerged out of people who had such experiences and developed those experiences until they were consistently having a holistic experience of who they are and what life is. So they knew that it was possible. They knew that there was a much larger truth to existence than just being a human being. There was far more to life, and there's far more to every individual on this planet, because we were all the same source consciousness. We were all expressions of that consciousness, and we were all experiencing an illusory reality that was something less than who we truly are. And therefore, this is what's driving the engine of illusion, is that what we're doing here is evolving ourselves experientially to the point of waking up and establishing the truth of who we are in our experience while we're being human beings. So this is the holistic model of reality. It's a holistic lifestyle. It's what I've been immersed in for nearly 30 years now here at Synchronicity Sanctuary. And if it wasn't for that, the experiences that I'm having as I'm speaking now, which is the consistency in being joyful bliss, consistency in being whole in relation to what I had experienced before, it wouldn't be possible. Now I have developed a presence that is consistent and is there every moment, and it often takes me into energetic experiences that are very deep and very, always joyful, always very blissful. So it's a radical different experience I have of myself and of life than I could possibly have had prior to going through the journey of waking up and then establishing that experience as my truth. And in that process, what I had to do was use contemplation such as this. I had to live with daily meditation. I had to live a lifestyle that helped support the kind of health and vitality on the physical level of my existence, to help support the energetic expansion that was going on with regards to my own evolution. And so it took years for that to happen. For some people it may not take that long, but there's an adaptive process on the physical level of our experience, which is you might call it the ground structure of our experience as human beings, that has to remain in place while we evolve our awareness and consequent experience of the truth of who we are, the joyful bliss that we are, the expression of the one source consciousness from which all of this creation comes and continues to renew itself moment to moment to moment. It's a dynamic experience of life that is far beyond that of someone who is unaware and still trying to fulfill themselves with the experience of who they are not. So, in a polarized field of experience, which is what we are in, those are the mechanics. First, you experience who you are not, and when you have fulfilled that experience, which simply means you brought yourself to a level of being separate and being other than whatever the source of everything is, to a point, to an extreme, and then it moves to the other polarity. It reaches an extreme, it shifts, because the polarities are mutually coexisting, and one can never be, you can't get rid of a polarity, but one can be dominant. And so as you experience the heights and extremes of one dominant polarity, then you will automatically be you will be moved towards the direction of the opposite polarity. So that's what I experienced, and this is my understanding as I was taught from my teacher here. And all I can say is that it's a very challenging process, but then life is a challenging process too. Prior to my awakening experience, I had a lot of experiences that were very unpleasant and experiences that were pleasant, but mostly unpleasant. There was no real joy, and certainly no consistent joy of life that I could claim to have prior to that. And after my awakening experience, when I started to realize that I had to do something to get that experience, to maintain that experience, that's where the journey of awakening really started, after the initial awakening experience. And this is where teachers show up in your life, if you're open to that, if that's what and your intention is strong enough to fulfill that drive to maintain yourself at a truthful level that you were not even aware of prior to an awakening experience. You want to be the joyful bliss that you are. You're not going to be satisfied with trying to return to the separated individual who is only flesh and blood and will die without purpose. That's the experience you had prior to that. Not good enough anymore. You're driven to establish constancy in the experience of being joyful bliss, because you've had a taste of it, and that's our very nature. So once you get a taste of that, nothing else is going to be worthy of your attention, unless of course you're still not quite ready, still not quite fulfilled in the illusion of separation, in the illusion of being less than who you truly are. So that's what I wanted to share with you today, and I hope that this is of some use to you, because I am joyful bliss, I am one and whole, is a statement that contradicts the belief systems that we may hold unconsciously that would say otherwise. And because we put a focus on such things, the data that still lives within us that is not commensurate with that statement will come up to be released. And this can be something that is bringing negative emotions with it. It can have even some kind of a physical experience attached to it as well. But it is the process of releasing limiting data, and while you are developing constancy in a truthful perception, a truthful experience of who you are and what life is. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I will be back again next Monday to share another contemplative focus with you.